We are back. It's episode 58 of Red versus Blue. My name is Mike Stark.
And I'm Keith Curry.
We decided it was time to have another episode. It's a good point to have it. We're finishing up the first 100 days. It seems like 100 years, but it's 100 days of the latest Trump administration. And I'm just going to turn you loose, Keith, and you tell me what's going on with that first 100 days.
Well, it's been a hoot. It certainly has been plenty to talk about, and plenty has been happening. You know, the 100 days has become the benchmark since Franklin Roosevelt. And there's a New York Times Siena College poll taken at the 100-day mark. And so I think that gives us a good departure point to see how the first 100 days have been going from the minds of Americans. Voters were asked how they would describe Donald Trump's second term in the first 100 days. 66% said chaotic, 59% said scary, 42% said exciting. His approval rating is at 42%. Now, that's about where he's been. He's got that sort of, base number, but it's historically low for any president at this point in their term, lower than, Clinton and Bush and everybody else. Only 43% of Americans believe that he's managed the economy well. That is just a devastating number because the economy was how he got elected. People thought he was going to manage the economy well, but the majority of Americans now believe he is not, that he is doing a poor job with the economy. In terms of tariffs, his tariff policy is opposed by 55% of voters, including 63% of independent voters. His approval rating among independent voters is now at a woeful 29%. And Mike, that has significant implications for the congressional midterm elections, because if he's underwater at this level with independents, Republicans are in serious danger of losing the House of Representatives. Voters say he's gone too far. 54% said he's exceeded his powers, including 16% of Republicans and 62% of independents. If we think he should or should not impose tariffs without authorization from Congress, 61% think he should not. Grant legal status to undocumented immigrants, 53% say he should not. Eliminate government programs enacted by Congress, 54% say no. Send U.S. citizens to prison in El Salvador, 73% of voters say no. Ignore the Supreme Court rulings, which he is tiptoeing towards doing, 76% say no. Overall, 54% say changes to the government's political and economic system have gone too far, with 63% of independents believing that. 44% of voters, including only 31% of independents, say he understands problems of people like me. So he's losing the empathy vote. That was his big thing. He represented people who had felt themselves ignored. That number has turned around. 61% of voters, including 33% of Republicans, say he should not be able to impose tariffs without authorization from Congress. 54%, including 26% of Republicans, say he should not be able to eliminate programs enacted by Congress. So he has got some serious problems. He's underwater on the economy by net 12, by trade with other countries by 11, on foreign conflicts by 14, on the war between Russia and Ukraine by 21, and on the case of Kilmar Garcia, who was sent to prison in El Salvador, 52% disapprove. That's a net of 21% in his disfavor. So he is underwater in the polls, and these have very serious implications for the Republicans in the midterm and for his ability to be effective going forward on other things that he wants to do.
Now, I'm going to stop you here. One of the areas that he has been completely successful with is closing down the border. It's virtually shut down now, right? Can we pretty much say that?
That is by far the most successful initiative of the Trump administration. He is popular with that, but he's pushed the deportations too far. That's his problem.
Right. And the other thing, it seems that there's a pivot going on here in his approach, because as you pointed out earlier, his campaigning was on the economy. And now, when asked about his accomplishments, the economy doesn't even come up. It's always the border, which is, the right thing for him to say because he was successful there. But he actually pushes back on the economy now and says we have to hurt a little bit before we get back on our feet. And that can't be good.
No, it's awful. In fact, it's potentially deadly for his political future and for Republicans in Congress, because he has lost the voters' support on the economy, which was the issue he got elected on in the first place, and his policies, which he'll be for tariffs one day or against them the next day, destructed $6 trillion of value of Americans in terms of their stock holdings. 60% of Americans hold stock.
Yeah.
All of them lost money, although the market averages are sort of back.
Yeah.
Portfolios are not back, and people are still incurring significant losses because of the Trump economic policies. And, you can't hide that. I mean, it's one thing he's now saying, well, the stock market, this is all Biden's market. It's not my market. But nobody's buying that. I mean, he just can't do that. He's got his fingerprints all over this. He owns the impact of the tariffs. The impacts of the tariffs have been bad on stock prices. They've been bad on jobs. They've been bad on economy. Somebody should explain to the president that the highest paid blue-collar jobs, a port pilot, a longshoreman, a truck driver, somebody working in logistics or warehousing, those are all dependent upon world trade. A guy making cars in South Carolina makes $14 an hour. A longshoreman makes $140,000 a year. So it's a big, he just doesn't understand the economy nor his impact on the economy.
And here in Los Angeles, those longshoremen are going to be sitting around a lot in the near future when those cargo ships stop coming into port.
34% reduction in containers this month. It's devastating to the port and to the economy of the city of Los Angeles and Long Beach. 1 out of 6 jobs in Southern California is world trade dependent. So it's going to have a devastating impact on the economy in Southern California.
And small business who rely on imports.
Absolutely. If you're a small retailer, a clothing store, a toy store, an appliance store, 80% of our toasters apparently come from China. It's devastating.
Okay, well, that clearly is his biggest problem at this point. Would you say?
Yes. I mean, if he loses the economy, he loses. There's no recovery from that. He'll have no credibility on any other issue, and Republicans in Congress will abandon him in droves.
And as much as his base loves the idea that the border's closed, they're not going to stand for that either, just based on the border closure, right?
No, it's going to be, thank you very much for closing the border, but I wish you hadn't, destroyed my retirement savings. I wish you hadn't, had my kid who works for the Forest Service lose his job.
Right, exactly. Okay, can we move on to personnel changes that have gone on since day one?
The revolving door at the White House has begun to revolve. So Mike Waltz was summoned to the White House and informed that he is being kicked up to the post of United Nations ambassador. I don't think he had asked for that job, but he's going there. Ironically, in the cabinet meeting where it was announced, he was shown, under the table with his phone engaged in a signal chat. So the man just doesn't really learn his lessons very, very quickly or very well. Now, the thing about it is, being National Security Advisor did not require Senate confirmation. Being United Nations ambassador does. And so Tammy Duckworth, the senator from Wisconsin, has already said that Waltz is going to face a very tough confirmation hearing when senators finally get to ask him about his use of signal, his advice to the president, and all of these other issues. So he's in for, while he's been theoretically promoted to UN ambassador, he's still got a very rough confirmation in front of a very angry and curious United States Senate. Pete Hegseth is still in his job, but he's lost all of his political staff because his own political, and I was one of these guys, his own political appointees, Trump true believers who got jobs in the administration, who got passed through the very arduous personnel screening process to make sure you were a Trump true believer before you got a job, all said, listen, the Pentagon is in chaos. Our country is in danger because the guy at the top is a nutcase. And apparently several of them talked to the press. The stories have been coming out, and he's now on a warpath to, give generals polygraph tests. Elon Musk actually was going to get a Pentagon briefing about how our war plans against China were going to be. And only because somebody leaked it did the president call it off and say, you can't do that. And now Hegseth's on the warpath to finding out who leaked it in the first place. But that's the kind of chaos that exists at the Pentagon. It cannot continue to exist. And he's, I think, not long for his job.
There probably still is an opening on that weekend slot at Fox, I'm thinking.
I'm thinking so too. And then we should not forget to mention Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, who announced that we had recovered so many thousand fentanyl tablets that saved 22,000 lives. And then the next day, it was 100,000 lives. And then the next day, it was 100 million lives, and then 220 million lives.
And there's only 340 million people in America, I might add.
That's right. She claims apparently that by interdicting this shipment of fentanyl, that we saved the lives of 75% of the American population.
Thanks, Pam. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Now, the one guy whose stock is up is Marco Rubio, who now owns several jobs. He's the acting National Security Advisor. He is the head of the USAID. He is the Secretary of State, and he's also the National Archivist, because he apparently is the only guy that is competent enough to do a job at the administration. And so Trump has simply given him all of them.
Is it my imagination, or does every time he appears on the screen, he seems even more unhappy? I mean, it never a smile. Just he looks really downtrodden.
I will give Rubio the credit for being a guy who at least has enough self-awareness to know that he's self-abasing himself when he self-abases himself. Not all of them do. Some of them just do it because it's what they want to do. But he at least understands what's going on. And yes, he's, I'm sure, not a happy guy.
Yeah. Well, he may hold us all together at some point, the way things are going, if they give him any more of the jobs that are available.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a budget cutting thing for them. I think just to consolidate jobs into one guy. I don't know.
Okay. You've got a special segment for this show that we're going to close out with. And what do you call this segment?
I call this segment, You Can't Make This Stuff Up.
Okay. Hit me with it.
Well, you know, every January 20th, the President of the United States at 12 noon strolls out onto the front steps of the Capitol. He raises his right hand and he pledges to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Every federal employee takes that similar pledge when they take a job in the federal government. It is fundamental to the way the government works. In fact, every state and local official takes the same pledge,
right,
to uphold the Constitution. When asked, is he going to uphold the Constitution relative to some of these deportations and court decisions, he said, I don't know. I got lawyers. They're going to tell me what to do. I may or may not.
Oh,
but we can't have 3,000 trials. I mean, that just doesn't work. So, we'll see. We'll see.
And we will see.
And we will see. He's winning a lot of places, but he's not winning in court. Item number 2, when asked about his impact on tariffs, he says, well, maybe this Christmas kids are going to get 2 dolls instead of 30. Now, I had a daughter, and we were, an only child, so we loved on her, but we never gave her $30 in one Christmas. Nonetheless, apparently Trump did. And they may cost a little bit more. So that's the kind of out-of-touch Marie Antoinette, let them in cake comment that will sink most politicians. And I think eventually it's going to catch up with him. The new announcement just yesterday is that he wants to reopen Alcatraz and use it as a place as a prison for illegal immigrants. Now, Alcatraz was closed in 1963 because 60 years ago it was deemed too expensive to renovate for modern purposes. It's been turned into a national monument, a park. 12 million visitors a year go to Alcatraz.
Yeah, it's a cool tour.
It's a great tour. It's a great spot in San Francisco Bay. It was too expensive then to renovate. It's going to be too expensive now to renovate. But yet that was his idea de jour. The other thing is that we're apparently going to pay migrants $1,000 if they self-deport. Now, I'm not really sure how the logistics of that are going to work, but I'm sure he's got a plan.
So $1,000 to deport. I wonder how many actual American citizens would take that offer.
It's on the table, so I mean, get it while it's hot. It's out there for you. Rwanda in Africa is, they're jealous of El Salvador, so they're now offering to, for pay, house American prisoners, migrants, exiles in Africa, and that will boost their population. And then you just can't make this up either. We're just back from Rome. We were, there near at the time of the Pope's funeral. Trump posted a picture of himself dressed as the Pope. It's one that he did, presumably with AI, artificial intelligence. Now, apparently, nobody has told Trump that the Pope, particularly if you're a Jesuit, you take a vow of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And I'm not sure he's ready for the requirements of that office.
Oh, you're right. You're right, Keith. Once again, you're right. You cannot make it up.
It was the week that was.
Absolutely. All right. Anything else we need to cover? And we will return. We've threatened to stop this show since the inauguration. I can't see how we can stop this show. This is just too much fun, and we're having a good time doing it. And it gets funnier and funnier. Hopefully, it stays funny and not dangerous and ugly. But we will continue this. Is there anything else we need to cover today?
No, I'll just advise our listeners, we're in May, so this is the month where they're supposed to pass the big, beautiful budget bill. And we'll see if the Republicans can come to terms with the ones that want to increase the SALT limitation for state and local taxes, those who want to raise taxes on higher income people, Freedom Caucus that wants to cut spending in a way that Trump does not want to cut it, and those that want to preserve Medicaid, because Medicaid is primarily a red state program. So stay tuned. It's going to be wild in the month of May.
And some of those budget fights are not between the Republicans and Democrats. They're between Republicans themselves.
Most of those are between Republicans themselves. Yeah. So there's a lot of arm twisting behind closed doors that's going to happen. And the world waits to see the result.
Excellent report, Keith. We will be back. Not sure when. We both have vacations scheduled. So we're trying to work this in between vacations, because if you just settled with all of this all the time, and we recommend this to you as our listeners, you can't live politics all the time. You got to go out and have some fun and do things. And that's what Keith and I are doing. But we will be back at some point, and we appreciate you. Be sure and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review if you can. And we'll see you next time for another edition of Red versus Blue.
Thanks, everybody. Be safe.